All right, so we've just finished that. We came off the wheel, and you got to let. What happens when you take the pottery off the wheel after you're done throwing?
So after you're done throwing, you want to let the piece sit out for a period of time, but not too long. So you want to let it sit out so it becomes leather hard, depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to stamp it, you might get it before leather hard. If you want to work with it after that leather hard. So, but if you leave it out for too long and you forget about it, it can become bone dry, and then you can no longer use it. You got to start over.
You got to start over again. So yeah, there's a delicate.
There's a window of opportunity.
Window of opportunity.
And it is small.
Yeah. Now, do you just throw it into the kiln like that, or you said you can stamp it? You can. Can you talk about the glazes that you do?
Yeah, so after that piece has gotten a handle attached and a spout attached, I would bisque fire it after it's bone dry. Bisque fire it.
What's bisque
comes
fire?
out of bisque fire is the first firing process. So it's when it becomes bisque ware, and it's fired to about cone 04. It's a really low firing. It just basically makes the piece hard. It's not hard like rock or ceramic, but it's hard enough to where it's not going to break. Just
you're
by
not going to
holding
get your
it.
little fingerprint.
Yeah, you're not going to get any nicks or like a fingernail mark. It's hard.
So there's more than one firing. Huh?
Yes. First firing's bisque firing. Then the second firing is when you apply glaze. So you can use glaze that you've mixed up in your own studio, or you can use commercial glazes. You can mix the two, use both. So you would apply that to bisque
funky
ware.
stuff here, right?
Yes.
Like dip and slip.
Dip it. Spray it, sponge it, paint it, whatever kind of way you can get glaze on it is totally workable. So after you've bisqued it, you've applied glaze, then it goes into the kiln again for the second time, and then it becomes ceramic at that point.
Two
firings.
Okay.
But you can't fire it more than twice. Sometimes people put gold luster on their pieces. That would require another firing.
So if you really want a lot of bling, you got to go through the fire
put
3 times.
Decals on, you go through another firing. China painting can be up to like 12 different firings for China paints. So.
No wonder why China's so expensive.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
I just learned something right there. You saw it. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about the firing process. Is there just one way to fire?
No.
With a log?
You can fire wood, salt, soda, poop firing, pit firing.
I like the poop firing.
You can fire raku firing. You can do a lot of different techniques of firing. Reduction, oxidation, or you could just fire neutral in an electric kiln.
Well, and then your electric kiln is what you have behind Anthony, right? That's
yes.
What you use,
I fire right now in an electric kiln, but I've fired in a reduction kiln previously in college, which was amazing, but I don't have millions of dollars to make a nice gas kiln here in my garage.
What about poop firing? Have you ever done that?
I have never pit fired. I've raku fired, and I've done a type of pit firing, but not with poop. We used hay and different things like that, but we didn't use poop.
I'd just like to do it, just say I've done
Just
it.
say you've done poop firing.
All right, now, there's this exact science, right, to firing?
Yes, there's temperatures and cones and lots of different ways you have to do it to make the piece come out the way you want. And there's lots of ways to mess it up.
Well, what are some of the ways that it's messed up?
So if you use a clay body that doesn't mix well with your glaze, like they're not compatible, you'll get glaze defects like crawling or shivering where the glaze is rejected off of the clay. And sometimes you can fire too hot and then your glaze will just run off of your piece completely. Or you didn't fire hot enough, the clay didn't get hot enough, the glaze didn't get hot enough, and then you have to refire.
So there's even a lot of intentionality and watching and really, really paying attention to how you fire, even though it's really hot and looks like you're away, but you're there. Now, can you tell us a little bit about these things right here?
These are cones, and you use, they're made in a factory where each cone is made to melt at a certain temperature. And you have a chart, which is called the pyrometric cone equivalency chart.
Say that one more time.
Pyrometric cone equivalency chart. So each cone levels out to a certain temperature. So for example, cone 6 fires, it'll melt at 2232, which is 2,232 degrees. So that cone will melt at 2,232 degrees.
And the melting is knowing when it's over.
Yeah,
right?
So if the cones are like this, and this cone is all the way melted, this cone's all the way melted, I'm probably going to turn off my kiln then. If this one's melted, I'm probably going a little too hot. And at that point, I would probably want to stop.
So you as the potter, even though it's enclosed, you always have to, you're always watching the pots, right?
Yeah, you're always monitoring.
And you're always making sure, you're always monitoring, even in that hot, complicated, dangerous.
Eye protection.
Yeah. There's always that constant monitoring, even in the most difficult of circumstances. All right.